So yesterday the last thing we did was this like Twitter search thing. That we can put something in the URL and we will end up looking in Twitter for a tweet with that thing. That's pretty cool, but it's still not very user friendly. What would be much nicer is if we could have like Amazon that the user can fill in a form instead of having to change the URL. So today we are going to learn how to use forms in our app. And okay, so the first thing you'll, well actually no, the 10,000 thing to notice is that Amazon have put it, or you see in ours it's like /tweet/America, like this is the page. In this one the page is /s/, oh no, actually they've gone a little bit crazy. They've done this like blah equals blah, URL equals blah, field keywords equals book. That they don't just have one thing, they have like a list of like key value. Granted these ones are a little bit crazy, so it's kind of hard to see, but this is the interesting one. So let's just try some more as an example. And these guys have done something similar. Okay, they've got, oh, I see, could you guys, oh, it is closed. Alright, never mind.
That's not much.
If you could, or I mean the blinds, but I don't think it's gonna help. Oh, actually, okay, a little bit. So again, something equals something, and then something equals something. In this case, term equals sense. And I guess it's not really obvious at this point why that's better, because I can't really find a good example. What is a simple site that has search? Let's do Reddit. Alright, so Reddit, I can search for Berlin. I'll search for Germany. So I can search for Germany, and I want only in the past 24 hours, and I want it sorted by comments. Actually, maybe let's do top. No. Okay, so before we had one single thing in the URL, and these guys have a totally different structure, so now they can have three things in the URL. That instead of going to /something, they've got A equals B, sort equals hot, T equals day. They can get like multiple things. And oops, let's get rid of those two. And it's a different URL structure. Like this is the page. Like we have an imaginary question mark here. Like everything before this question mark is like the page, the actual like URL. If I delete these, I should go somewhere. Like I'm still like search is the actual like page, the URL. And we're still on the same page, but now the page has different parameters. Whereas on R1, if we change this, it's like we're on a different page. Kind of strange concept. Alright, so that's what we're aiming.
So for us the difference is we don't have anything after the question mark.
Exactly.
That would like change parts of the page or something.
Order by recent. So maybe in R1 in the future we want to be able to do like parameters. So we want to say get me the most recent, but get me 5. So instead of just being stuck with a single one, we can start putting in all this. In fact, what I kind of want is for the URL to be Q equals America. That now instead of it just being fixed with America, it's like we're always going to tweet. It's always the same page, but we're giving that page different like information. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. and it's a little bit confusing. So we're going to build up an example slowly to make it make more sense. We're going to go on a bit of a scenic route and make some like prep stuff work first. So the first bit is going to be kind of off topic, and then we're going to come back to this. But conveniently, that means we can repeat some of the stuff we did yesterday and kind of just see it happen again. So what do we need? We've got a new folder, so let's create a new gem file. So remember, it's capital G gem file, new RB, gem sinatra, contrib. There's one more thing. Just give me a second. So we want to use so instead of Twitter, actually just for some variety, we're going to make this example use Flickr search instead of Twitter search. So we need to add the Flickr gem. I'm going to post this in Slack in a second. I'm not really sure why, but last time I did this, I used a different version of the Flickr thing. I suspect we came across a bug that was only fixed in this version. Ideally, I should have put a comment explaining that, but I forgot. So one neat thing about the gem is you can tell it, gem file, you can tell it where, so yeah, if you just look in Slack, so don't worry about typing this, if you look in Slack, you can just copy the line, because it's got the big long URL. And so normally when gems get published, it's because the person that's writing it decided, okay, this is version 1.2, I'm going to stop adding new features and release it. Sometimes there's bugs in the release, which I think is what happened last time. We came across some bug, or it didn't work on the latest version of Mac or something or other. So one neat thing you can do is tell the gem system, instead of looking at Ruby gems, go to their GitHub page and download like the latest code, which is usually a bad idea because quite often the latest, like if it's, normally when somebody releases something, it's because they've decided, okay, this is ready for release, whereas the latest version in GitHub is just like the thing they were screwing around with at 4 o'clock in the morning, and like they're not ready to release, they're just kind of typing. But sometimes there's a bug in the released version that they fixed at 4 o'clock in the morning but haven't released yet. And you go, okay, screw it, we'll use the unreleased version. But the flip side is that's risky because maybe they fixed the bug but introduced 10 more bugs.
So where do you get the released versions?
Ruby gems. Well, that's, oh, hang on. Oh, is it? Well, it tends to be, well, usually what happens is you end up Googling for something, like you'll get an error and you Google for it and someone on Stack Overflow will say, oh yeah, I got that too in version 0.9.8. It doesn't work with, I don't know, Twitter if you're on a Mac and you don't have Xcode installed, blah blah blah. But the guy fixed it in this version. Or sometimes 0.9.8 doesn't work, so you go, okay, I'll go back to 0.8 because you only put in the bug in the new version, so you go, okay, I'll use the old version. Anyway, it's more just to show that you can do it as well. So it should look like this. Hopefully someday I'll figure out why and can fix that comment. That's usually a good time for comments actually, when you do something that makes no sense. That normally your code should be obvious why you're doing everything, like if you've written it well. Oh, can I find yesterday's? Like if you look at the code from yesterday, it all seems quite readable. like I never really have to worry like what is get first tweet doing. It's quite obvious. I don't have to comment it saying this is going to get me the first tweet. So ideally you write your code so just by reading it you can understand it. Whereas in this one I've done something strange and I don't know why. So I probably should have commented it saying why I did that, but I forgot. Okay, anyway, enough off-topic rambling. Let's just run the gem file with bundle and should download some stuff.
It's probably not a good idea.
Okay. Alright, a few more boring things. Let's load up. Oh, actually, yes. Next boring thing is you need to copy. Same again from yesterday. It's a file called Flickr helper in Spring Edward week 1. You need to copy it and put it into your thing. And yeah, that's Spring course Edward week 1 Flickr helper.
We used it yesterday. I think we had it yesterday too.
We used something similar. This is kind of like a just a pre-setup one that we can use. Okay, and it's similar to the Twitter thing that it connects with the API key and it does stuff. The Flickr raw gem is not so easy to use, which is why I did this, that we can use these two helper functions, which are much easier. Because it's kind of complicated to actually like get a photo out.
Where is it again?
Oops. It's,
Week 1, sinatra font.
yeah.
I have someone like I open the folder and then I create the file and it shows open and like above and open files, but it's not shown below like with the folder view, like the new ones I add. So I have to so this is now like I reopened it, but let's say I copy over also say Twitter helper. No, for some reason, like, so if I have this now, it doesn't automatically update, but also when I open file, even though it's in the same directory, I have it up here for some reason, I don't know. Okay, well, yeah, okay, that's what I did before too, but like how it's like closing,
Yeah, it should notice it. I'll try and look at it later. Someone has a file refresh folders thing that doesn't work, but it should normally work. We'll try coming back to it. Okay, has everybody got that? All good? Alright, so let's do some,
Can we actually do that? I
mine.
only have Twitter helper. Why didn't I?
Oh, did somebody move it instead of copying it? Conveniently I have a backup. It's, oh. Where is your Dropbox? Oh, your Dropbox is still syncing. I think Dropbox hasn't downloaded it yet.
Okay, I'll wait.
So it's been,
But it should be in the week 1 folder.
Yep.
Okay, I'll wait.
okay. In the meantime, meantime, we can start filling in server RB. Oops. Just for a laugh, we're going to call it site.rb, just to prove that it doesn't have to be called server RB. And we need the same stuff as last time. It requires sinatra. Requires sinatra slash reloader. Actually,
Should we also do that?
yep. Dot slash flicker helper. Oops. Let's create the test URL called flicker. Oops. Okay.
Why do you have to do another update?
Oh, that was just me screwing around. Just curious. Okay, if you don't have the Flickr helper yet, comment out this line for the moment. And if you do, don't comment it. But if you run ruby site.rb, oh, cannot run Flickr. That's weird. Hold on, give me a second. What? Well, that's very strange. Does anybody else's break? So did everybody?
I didn't use Flickr helper.
That's alright.
That's all mine didn't break.
Okay, but when you do ruby site.rb, you should see Sinatra has taken the stage again. Oops. You should be able to go localhost 4567 slash Flickr test. I should say I'm working. But it might explode because something went weird on mine. Did yours work?
No, I have some typos in there, but no, it works.
Okay.
I need to get Sinatra reloader again. I need to enter the website. What's the come from?
Yeah, that wandered around. Alright, it's weird. Mine exploded and I'm surprised no one else does. Yeah, if you're on the Mac, you might need the source thing at the top of your jam file we had yesterday.
See, this time I didn't ask that. Funny.
Yeah, that's true.
Because maybe now it knows. Maybe because we did it
I
first
think
time,
the
very
different-
first time for.
It's a different, well, actually, that shouldn't run into a problem because it already has the stuff installed.
from the,
Yeah,
from
could be.
ruby.org and now we have it, maybe.
But I'm
It's
also
like behind the
wondering,
scenes.
yeah, because we didn't do this, wait, it's working for you too, and you didn't have to use the source thing yesterday.
No,
Isn't
but
it all
like
right?
these gems are already installed, so it should work.
Yeah, no, I was wondering if maybe they're using, cause we did,
See, this is the same error. Yep, delete that.
Flickr yesterday, just a normal one, but now we're doing another one.
Yeah, but
So maybe
here
that's
the,
why it's working too, cause we don't have the
So
source,
delete
so then
column.
it uses the ones from yesterday.
Delete the
well,
gem.
in this case we specify the other source.
Yep.
Yeah, this colon git dash, this specifying the source for, which it should be there, right? Like otherwise it wouldn't make much sense to
So
run
running
it
the
then.
sinatra reloader, you read on.
Or it wouldn't work,
You
probably.
didn't enter it because Control already has.
We're not using
Yep.
the sidebar.
Well, that's why we have
Oh,
contrib to bring it.
I don't know, it's just, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no.
Probably.
Yeah, well, we would have the other version if we didn't put that in, right? But we still would have Flickr all from yesterday, the other version.
Slash
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if we're using the version we were using yesterday, and that's why it's not, cause his thing is, crashing in terminal, but ours isn't.
Do you actually have the Ruby Gems Gem Manager installed? Because I think that might be the reason why we have to put the source in there, because we don't have it installed.
I'm not sure, but it all seems to be working, so I'm kinda gonna go,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, but, so now we have a working server RB, or site RB, whatever. One thing you notice, I've stopped putting return here. So do you guys remember the implicit return thing I was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do I still have this? So yesterday we always did return, return, return. Because of that implicit return, whatever's on the last line gets returned anyway, so I can take it away now.
Is it a good habit to still put it, or does it really not matter?
Most people don't use it, and they'll only use it in a situation where it's ambiguous. So then you can go, okay, this is definitely the thing that I'm returning. And mostly just for that reason that you end up with the word return 1,000 times and not really need it. Okay, let's just put that back. Okay, so now I am working. But that's still not very interesting, so let's use the Flickr helper. And in the Flickr helper, I have an URL called getPhotoURL. So I'm going to use, whoops, get photo URL elephant. And if everything works, that's gonna, well, ask Twitter, do a search for elephant and get me the URL of the first photo. May or may not actually work. No, it did not. Oh, parameters. Let's go recent. Okay.
So it's supposed to show an URL, is that?
It should, but I think I broke something. Oh, wait. Well, that's annoying. Okay, I broke something. So you'll need to go to Flickr helper and change something, because apparently they've changed the API, annoyingly. And there's the line flickr.photos.search. Actually, wait, hold on. I'll put it here. So there was a line that says search equals photos.search. Change it to get capital R recent. And
The
there's
search part.
and there's two places that's used, on line 7ish and on line 14ish.
So how did you find that out now?
Because it did tell me in the error, Flickr raw failed response, Flickr search parameterless searches have been disabled, please use Flickr raw photos get recent.
Okay.
And
I
I've,
just have to find that
yeah.
somewhere.
Same
Yeah.
thing in 415.
and it's partly because I've used this enough that when it gives me that error, I'm like, oh yeah, I've used that search before.
Yeah.
Or I remember using get recent for something else, so it all kind of fits. That's it. One of the annoying things about these gems, sometimes it works 3 months ago, and now it doesn't, and you've got to figure out in the moment. Okie dokie. You'll probably need to kill your server, because it seems like the Sinatra reloader doesn't reload the Flickr helper. But if you reload it and go to Flickr test, you should see an URL. Which will hopefully, oh, that's not an elephant. Well,
That's the thing, the searches are so weird.
I think
Yesterday too, when we searched like house, it's
I
like.
think I've still
Okay.
there's I made a version that was wrong, and then I fixed it, but I'm not sure which one is the fixed version anymore. And the version that I did wrong, it wasn't sending the search query right, which is why it would get random results.
Maybe that's what we have then.
But at this point, I'm not sure what the right.
This is my result.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the right one is.
You got that too?
That's an elephant there.
That's.
All right. I will. Cool. That's fairly normal at this point.
It's just the two, right? Get recent, get recent.
Is that just because it gets the most recent search terms? That has nothing to do with elephant?
Maybe.
It's
Yeah, if it's broken then.
get recent. I mean, like what do people most recently look for?
Or like, well, I mean, there's plenty of people that will describe it wrong. And maybe the most recent one,
This one.
Okay.
like not exactly the most relevant.
Yeah. So yeah.
Control C, right?
Sure.
I don't actually know Flickr.
You can use it quite nicely, like they have a search function where you can have like
But actually, if we search on.
you can search or filter pictures which are free to use.
Is that supposed to be the URL?
Which is quite
Oh, that's
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just open it now.
Yep.
If we search on Flickr and type elephant, should we get the same photo?
Not a line. It's not an elephant.
You will get elephants if you do use the real search.
Yeah, but so it's not.
Well,
the same.
we're just looking for the most recent search.
Yeah. Well,
But
I think,
with elephant in it.
or the reason why it was broke last time, 'cause I think query is
Yeah,
not.
we get elephants here.
It's not supposed to be query. It's supposed to be like search term or like queue or something, and I'm using the wrong word here.
Okay.
We'll fix it after lunch. But as long as we get pictures back, it's close enough for the moment. And we'll make a real search. Well, okay, actually, give me 2 minutes and I'll. No, this isn't right. Yeah, it's one of the. That's still not right.
Is it of any relevance that we put elephant in quotation marks there, or was it
Nope.
entirely irrelevant?
Totally not gonna make a difference. Oh no, wait, I want.
I don't think it works for them. Without the quotation marks.
Is that an elephant? That is an elephant. Okay, maybe got it working. Toaster.
How was that? Oh, there.
That's not a toaster. The problem is it's really hard to tell whether it's working.
Or is it relevant? Is it relevant or not?
Well, you can
Well, but I
take
want,
the
it should
one
at
where
least,
it shows 10 pictures again, then it's maybe easier.
Okay, well maybe leave it broken for a second until we get
Yeah.
the better version working. Okay, no, that's a cat. Alright, I think that I've got it working. Okay, so change it back to search. Search was correct. But instead of query, it should be text. So it should be search and text.
so then it searches for the description.
Yeah, and I think that's why query wasn't working, because query it goes, well, I don't know what that means, I'll throw it away. And vice versa, it was looking in text and going, well, you didn't give me any
Yeah.
text.
Because now it really depends if someone describes the picture with the word, then you'll find it.
Yes, I think that's why we get weird results
Yeah.
sometimes, because someone is like, I don't know,
Okay, so back to search instead of get recent.
and text. And you'll need to restart the server as well, again.
Maybe not cat. Oh, I didn't type cat.
I didn't type cat.
Wait, that's
Well.
weird then.
Alright, maybe it may or may not be working, I don't know. Anyway, we get back pictures, just imagine they're the right ones. Okay. But right now we're still fixed to cat. User has no way of putting stuff in. So let's make another one called get slash search do and let's do add photo equals no, yeah. Let's do this. Oh. Wait. Results. So we're still temporarily not going to have a form. I kind of want to build up the concepts. So forms are a little bit weird to understand with websites because they're in two. The place that displays the form is like totally independent from the place that like uses the results. And that's a bit weird to wrap your head around, so I'm kind of going to like start at the end and work backwards to the form so that we can kind of see how the different bits fit together. Okay, so we're going to tell it when I go to search results, look in the URL for a search term and display this ERB file, which means we need an ERB file. So remember that the views, the ERB views always go into the views folder, which means you need to create that folder. And we need a file called search-term.erb. I'll bring back up the thing if you need it. Shift Alt It. Shift Alt It. So we've got add photo up here, so we can go flicker, oops. Which one? And we can shove this straight into an image tag. Because remember that whatever is in this, once it's processed, it will be replaced by the content of the add photo thing. So by the time it gets to the browser, or so because add photo it contains the words http flickr.com image blah blah blah, we'll end up getting image src equals http image blah blah blah.com. Oops. Okay.
So my question is, I had some problems replicating this with the params yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So part in the record tells the function that the search term will come from the URL.
Yes.
But so we have it linked to a page called search results. So how do we have space to put something in the URL?
We're gonna actually get to that in a second. You always come up with questions that are good, but that we're about to
Oh, sorry.
answer.
Okay.
But it's good. It means you're paying attention. Wait, slash search results. So no, that's fine. Okay, so if you go to search results, you'll probably get an error. Search term equals cat. Oh. Well, maybe there is a big error. Search result. Oh. Make sure you call your ERB file the same thing as you tried to call it. I'm dumbass.
Mine showed a picture, that's weird too, right?
That's good. That means I am dumb, but you are not. So I said I want to display ERB search results, but I called the ERB file something else, so it exploded. So if yours also explodes, check that.
Search term needs to be renamed search results.
Yep. We could call it search term, but then down here we need to tell it I want you to display search term. And I don't know, maybe this is working. Potato. Is that potato related? Yeah, I think that's working. That's definitely Berlin.
But I didn't type anything, I just put search results. Where do I get the picture? Is that just
I think because it's going, if param search term is empty, we'll give the Flickr thing empty and it'll go, well, I'll just give you random photos.
okay.
Is my theory. That may not be correct, I'm not sure. Okay, good. Okay, we'll start wandering around.
Let's give me this get recent error. I probably did some code messed something up in this.
Did you restart the server?
Yeah, I did. Oh, I can do it again.
Okay, so what happened here and what is important? So I brought up the yesterday's one again. So yesterday, so there's this question mark thing. And like these are parameters to the page, but this is the page. So before we didn't have that. It's like each of these is a different page. And actually, so Facebook is a good example for that. Like Edward McCahan is one page, so it's not like a parameter to the page. Like it is the page. Who else? So each person gets their page, and that's what changes. And that's totally a valid option. Maybe we do want to go with this way for some reason. But this is, I don't know, just another way. The main advantage to this is it lets us chain stuff that we could do order by equals whatever, and so on and so on. Like sometimes if you do toast, like, well, okay, that one's not too bad. Sometimes you'll see an URL and it's got like 600 million parameters because that's how the person that decided to do it kicked everything around. But anyway, the point is you can have more stuff in there. So let's get rid of those. Okay, but it's still not very user-friendly. User still has to type in here something. Robot. What would be, again, would be much nicer is like on Amazon to have a form. Oh, can't see that. So, kind of take a snapshot of this in your brain, and then we're going to come, so now we've worked at it from one end, we're going to work at it from the other end. But keep that URL in your mind so that you can see how they connect. So we are going to need a second page called search form, and it can just do ERB search form, and for that we need an ERB file. Oops, okay. Which obviously has to be called search form.erb. Okay, so yeah, new action, new URL, new ERB file. And again, we'll do some typing and then I'll come back and explain. should, when you go to search form, see something like this. Dun dun dun, we finally have a search form. And if everything really goes to plan, whenever you put in something, giraffe. Oh, well, that's not helpful. Paris. Okay, that's Paris. Boom.
Of course, the search form doesn't work yet, right?
It should work if everything. Lord. Is that a keyboard? That's not a keyboard. Dog. Alright, oh, well. Get a picture of a cat. Don't know if mine's broke again. Oh well, whatever, I get a thing. Who is working and not working? Alright.
Well, yeah, the result is strange.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, so you see,
Should we? Oh. Param search term. Is that Berlin? Yeah, that's Berlin. That's pretty scruffy. Okay. So what happened there? Actually. Okay, so let's put the pieces back together. So maybe, can you in two tabs have your search form open and the other one have one of the previous ones? So like search results equals search term blah blah blah. So I'm going to put this over here. So if I search for the word robot and I hit submit, so the one on the bottom left is the one that I typed out by hand, and the one on the right is the one that came from the form. And you'll notice the URLs are identical. And that's kind of the important thing about forms, is that they're split into two parts. It's more like when you click submit. Oh, where did it go? So we said create a form. Action is search results, which is our results URL. And we want one field called search term. So that means when we hit submit, it combined all of those like little facts, search results, search term, to make this URL. So go to search results, go to search results. We have a field called search term, and it takes the thing that I put into the form. Where am I going with this? Yeah, and I guess that's the thing to understand with forms. It's like there's one page that will display it, but when you hit submit, it's the same as if you went to a regular link. So the page that's receiving the form has no knowledge of what the form was. All it knows is what is the current URL that the user went to. And the current URL was generated by the form, but this page doesn't know that. So just as an additional one, let's do ahref equals slash search results search term equals robot. Maybe put a BR tag just to tidy it up a bit. Oops, sorry. Oh, hang on. Okay. So just to prove that it works, oh wait, you can't see. I have an URL that goes to slash search results. It says search term robot. If I click on that and open it in a new tab, I get this URL. But if I fill in robot here, both times the URL is identical. And so that's pretty much what you need to think of when you're building a form, of like, almost like, what is the URL that I need to generate to make it work? And vice versa, when you're making the thing that takes the result, it's more like, what information do I need to make this page work? Like if I'm doing a search result, or if I'm doing a search, like what inputs to the search do I need? Or if I'm making like an add item to shopping cart, what information about the item do I need? Maybe in this case it should be like item ID instead of search term. So you figure out like what data does the page that's doing the action need? And then once you figure that out, you can make a form that gives it the right information. Okay, yep. And the three-ish key parts is, one is what, so we open a form tag, we tell it what page to go to, and then each of the inputs is like the parameters in the URL, and one submit button. If you forget the submit button, you get a form that looks like this, and then you can't submit it. Okay, you can submit it with hitting enter, but there's no button. So don't forget the submit button. Any questions on that so far? Because it's a little bit of an odd concept. Okay, if that made sense, so let's just do one thing slightly insane. Copy that form and put it at the top of search results. .erb. And oh, where did it go? Put it in. So now I've got like the form in two different places on the site. Shoes. Okay, that works. So I have the form. Yeah, it's on the form display is in two different places, but they both submit to the same place. So that same place doesn't really care what page was the form on. The box loses it for the moment, because we never really told it to remember it.
But like, where did you, what site, where did you start at? Did you start with the search term sheet?
So I started on search form, where we have one version of the form. Zebra. That wasn't Zebra. So this is like the first use of the form.
Okay.
That's not a zebra. And we have the same form duplicated, and it's duplicated on the results page. And the point is just to prove that you can have the form in 1,000 different places, because each time the form is going to go to the same place, so it doesn't really matter where it came from. Actually, it's the same way this URL, we can click this URL and get the same result. The result page never cares how did you get here, it's more like what information did you arrive with. It's like what is the search term that you put in.
So where does it take the search term in when it says input and then
So
in
whatever,
the code?
so we have input type text name equals search term.
Yeah.
So that's this input field. So whatever we put in here,
It'll
it puts,
equalize that to search term.
Yep.
And we'll plug it in everywhere where we say.
just for a laugh. Okay, so let's, which one am I on? Maybe let's do it on search form. So create 3 more inputs, call them search term, order, and
In search form, yeah.
I don't know, quantity or count. We're not really going to use them, but we're just going to show them on the form. So you should see 3 different fields. And the search term is still the only one that we're actually using, recent, but we're going to put them in anyway. So if I put in robot, recent, and count, when I go to the URL, they all appear in the URL with the same name as the field I put it in. So in the search term field, I put robot, so it gets search term equals robot. In the name order, I put recent, so I get order equals. And the same with count. In the count, the thing with name count, da 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 da. So that's a good point. For each of these inputs, it's important to give it a name so that it knows what to put it in the URL as.
Okay. Normally you wouldn't put a text type field for order or count, right? You'd more like
Drop down would be nice.
yeah, something like that.
I can never remember how to do this. Select example. Let's do that.
But so if name stands for what to put it in the URL, then where does you link the input to the search function?
Alright, so that's where the split goes. On the form, it knows I put the search term in the URL. Where did it go? I'm going to put the search term.
Okay, now I get it.
So it puts it in the URL.
And then that's where it takes it from.
Yeah, and vice versa, we have to pull it out. And that's why I mean it's like
Is
into
that always how it goes?
yeah.
When you do searches? Wow, okay.
Well, there's this idea. So part of this HTTP thing is that each request is like 100% independent
Okay.
and has no knowledge of the previous one. So there is no such thing as going from one page to another. It's more like, or as far as like the website is concerned, it doesn't know that you went from page A to page B. All it knows is you asked for page A, and then at some point you asked for page B. It doesn't know that the reason you went there was because you were on page A. It just went, oh, suddenly they're on page B. It doesn't care if suddenly you're on page like Z. It just goes, okay, they asked for it, I'll try and give them it. And yeah, I think that's what I meant by forms are strange, that it's not really that you're connecting one thing to another. It's like you're doing something on one page so that, I don't know, you're building that independent request in a way that makes sense to the next stage. I'm not sure that sentence makes so much sense.
No, but I get what you mean.
Okay, so just to summarize that, in case it made no sense. So that's why, so the form builds up the URL, and then it just lets go. It says, I'm done being responsible. And vice versa, the second page goes, I am going to look in the URL and get out the information. So they're never really talking to each other. It's just like one builds the URL and one looks at the URL. And it's up to us. We're responsible for constructing the URL and pulling bits out of it. Which, yep, is quite strange. Oh yeah, I was going to put in a select tag. So just for a laugh, let's put in, let's get rid of that. Okay, ignore the bottom one. So instead of, so right now we have input type text for order. Let's change it into a drop down. Option size will do. Okay, so put that in and erase the original order one. So we used to have input type name equals order. Now we have select name equals order. And actually, yeah, okay, so this is a good point. And so hopefully you should see this drop down thing if it all worked. Orangish.
So the drop down thing is there, but it doesn't really seem to get passed out to the like as the URL. I only get search term and count.
It sounded something slightly weird here because I think is what's happened. It's colour the screen. For whatever reason, we haven't. Let's close this.
Okay. see something very similar to before. In fact, that's actually quite important that it's almost identical to before. I think it is identical to before. That search term equals orange came from like user typing something, and order equals recent came from the drop down. But this page can't tell. So the form is free to be as crazy and weird as it likes. So if you want, you can create some like crazy elaborate JavaScript thing. Your form can have whatever user interface it likes. Does this have other stuff? I don't know. Somewhere there's a bunch of weird ones of these. Yeah, this one's neat. Demo. Is this gonna work? So I can have like a crazy user interface, but as long as at the end it puts stuff in the URL and it puts the number 69 in the URL, it will just generally work. And that's quite neat, because it means you don't need your receiving side to be like clever enough to understand what the other thing was doing. It just needs to know its own part. Oh, that's neat. Okay, let's get rid of those. HTML form types. So there's a bunch of different input types. Can I find some examples? They all work roughly the same. Search. Although I can't really find any. They're quite like a showcase. Anyway, but you've seen them. There's like the radio buttons. There's input, text inputs. What would be the word I'm looking for? Okay. Oh, this might work. Checkbox, radio, file. There's no examples. Okay, anyway, there's stuff like radio buttons, there's the drop downs, there's file uploads, checkboxes, all kinds of stuff. But they all generally work the same. I'm not sure what the best reference for that is actually. Okay, I'll think about that. Okay, but that was forums. Really? I think we'll maybe take a break there. Any questions or wonderings about those? Again, it's something you kind of just have to like build stuff with, and then you see how it works.